So we're still getting ready for our exam on Monday for my year 11, but for anyone else who might have an exam coming up. And this one is a ratio question, and you've got to read the question. It's very tempting just to see the ratio and do a share it out in a given ratio question, but they're not always of that kind of question. So let's first of all remind ourselves, how do we share out in a ratio, just in case that comes up. Let's say we're going to share out £130 into this ratio of 3 to 6 to 4. We're going to add up the ratio, and that's going to give us 13. That means every time we share out some money, 3 for you, 6 for you, 4 for you, we've given out £13. So how many times can we do that until we've run out of all the money? Well, that's going to be our £130 that we've got divided by the £13 we give out each time. Means we can give out money 10 times. And each time we give out £13, which gives us the total of 130. So I'm going to give that out 10 times, and the first person is going to get £3. 10 times, they get £30. The second person is going to get £6 10 times, so they get £60. And the last person is going to get £4 10 times, which is £40. Nice and easy. But it is less and less common that you get that straightforward share out an amount in a given ratio. The other kind of question you can get is that they tell you what one person has and asks you what another person has. So let's say that they tell us that Penny gets £30. Oh no, wait, that's too easy. So we've got it already here. Let's say that Penny gets £12. We could then ask, how much does James get? Well, if the ratio is 3 to 6 to 4, and we've got 12, we've got to somehow turn that, find out what this value is. And the way you can do that is, it's kind of like equivalent fractions. You can say, well, what do we times the 3 by to get up to 12? Well, I times that by 4, which means everything should be times by 4. So the 6 times by 4 would be 24, not that I need to know that. And the 4 times 4 means this person got 16. But we still haven't done this question, which is even more complicated than those two examples, because it says that Amjit gets $28 more than James, and we want to work out the amount that Penny gets. So you've got to be very, very careful here. So we've got the ratio of 3 to 6 to 4. We know that whatever James gets, whatever that value is, that Amjit is going to get the same amount plus 28. Okay? Now, if you think about it, this 4 scales up, this 6 scales up by this factor, just like we said here. So last time we did this easier question, we said, well, that times is by 4, and then everything times by 4. So if you think about this one, 4, what do you times by to get x? Whatever you times by, if you do 6 times that amount, you're going to get x plus 2. So the extra that we get here is the extra that this person, the Amjit, gets scaled up. So if we change this into 4 plus 2, 4 plus 2 is 6. The 4 scales up to x, just like it did, and the 2 has scaled up to 28. So this factor that we're multiplying by is timesing by 14. Yeah? The extra that is in here, 2 between 6 and 4, is equivalent to the extra in this ratio here, which is 28. So looking at that's the only thing we now know that is a number to a number is this extra bit of 2 becoming an extra 28, and that gives us the multiply by 14. So what does Penny get? Well, Penny's amount also gets 14 times bigger, so whatever 3 times 14 is going to be pennies amount. So 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times 4 is 12. So she gets $42. Key thing with a ratio question is to read the question. It is so tempting to see a ratio and just start sharing it out. And sometimes that's the right thing to do. You've got to read the question. Are you just sharing out a ratio? Are you doing equivalent ratios and scaling them up and cancelling them down? Or is it something more complicated where you really need to think of how to get the numbers that will give you that scale factor, that comparison? Last thing to say about ratios is sometimes you get a ratio, whatever it is, I'll pick a very easy one, and they ask for the ratio as a 1 to n ratio, or they could ask for an n to 1 ratio. If they ask that, then you're just simplifying it down, and usually when we simplify a ratio down, we stop when we get to whole numbers that won't divide any further. But if you're asked for a 1 to n ratio, then you're allowed decimals. Basically, in this case, the first number is becoming 1, so 2 down to 1 has been halved, so the 3, you halve it, you do the same things like this when we did the same multiplication to all of the numbers. Everything was times by 4, here everything's being halved, so 2 becomes 1, and 3 becomes 1.5. And an n to 1 ratio, well, it's the 3 that's becoming 1, so we do a third of everything. So we get 1 on this side, and 2 divided by 3 is going to give us 0.6 recurring on that side. So it doesn't matter if you get a decimal. If it's a 1 to n or an n to 1 ratio they ask for, then they want the decimal. It just makes it easier to compare ratios where the numbers are complicated. If you make them all 1 to something ratios, it's really easy then to see which one's big and which one's smaller ratio. So just be aware that only time you're allowed decimals in your ratio is if they've specifically asked for a 1 to n or n to 1 way of writing that ratio. Well, hopefully, if a ratio question comes up, you will take a little bit of time, you'll read the question carefully, you'll set it out and look for equivalent equivalent ratios. You'll look for that scale factor that's the same for everyone, or you'll do the sharing out method if that is what you are being asked to do. But crucially, read the question carefully. Best of luck in that ratio question if it comes up on Monday for my class, but whenever you're doing your exam, and ta-ra for now.